Another question I've got. So values, the values for the party is obviously really, really important. How are candidates and representatives held account to those party values? So what procedures exist if they are in breach?
Ah, well, it depends on the nature of the breach, I suppose. So if it's an inadvertent breach, I mean, we're really big on wanting to be ready to say we're sorry. You know, I've had one or two occasions where I've been on Twitter and I've said something stupid and people have called me out and I've known I was, you know, when they call me out, I'm like, oh God, that was such a stupid thing to say. So I say, oh, look, you're right, I'm sorry. And nobody says that in politics. And that I feel good when I do that and people seem to like it, not surprising. So if a candidate says something that is not quite in line with the Charter of Core Values, and this, I won't go into details, but there was one occasion where this happened. And we on the National Executive talked it through with a candidate who realised what they'd said and realised that it was wrong. And they just went back to the forum where they'd made that comment and said, look, I'm sorry. That was silly. I'm wrong. That's not our values and I shouldn't have said that. If a person deliberately chose to flaunt the values, I mean, I would hope that the system is tight enough that that would not happen, in the sense that the sort of person, so just using that mandatory detention example again, if you're the sort of person that thinks refugees should be locked up, thinks we shouldn't be a member of the Refugee Convention, thinks they should all be turned back and put in jails and whatever you think, whatever terrible thing you think should happen to them, why would you join our party? It's there in black and white that that's not part of our, you know. So why would you join our party when there are lots of right-wing parties that you could join to put that sort of argument into place? And it's so hard to imagine that someone would join the party believing strongly in the freedom of the individual and that refugees should be treated like human beings, and suddenly for some reason completely change their mind when they were in the party. So I think that the chance of that happening are really slim, but if they did, I guess they'd be expelled from the party, you know. And if they were a parliamentarian, they would, you know, they would be expelled from the party, and they would, if we were in government, sit on the crossbench. If we were in opposition, sit on the crossbench. If we were still a small party, go somewhere else, you know.
I mean,
that would be the bottom line. But
yeah, sorry. Part of the reason I ask is I imagine at one stage, Menzies stage, maybe afterwards, that the Liberals would have said the same. It would have been impossible for anyone to be running for us who didn't hold our values. But somewhere along the line in that party, we know things have gone terribly wrong. And I ask from a perspective of if there is an occasion where we end up with an Angus Taylor, or we end up with people that we are breaking social standards, let's say, that party hasn't, in my opinion, taken enough of a stance to poor behaviour. And I'm looking for that party to be, you know, worth voting for me, is a party that will say, no, we have a policy. You break this, you go against our values, you're out, and this is how you'll be replaced. Because it just feels like it might start, but I look at the Liberal Party and I see massive damage because of that.
That's right. You're quite right. The Liberal Party is nothing more or less than the product of a long series of compromises. And a long series of acts of cowardice where they haven't stood up to those who sought to gain pragmatic personal advantage over the policies and the ideals of the original party. And that's the wages of sin, as you say. This is what you end up with, this totally corrupt organisation. So that's why I say to you, I'm hoping it's really, really unlikely given the system we have in place, but nothing's impossible. And if it happened, they would have to be expelled. And that would be hard and ugly, and we would be hammered by all sides for expelling them. But it's way, way the lesser of two evils, because the moment they stay and the moment they get away with that, then our Charter of Core Values isn't worth the paper it's written on.
That's right. And you end up being like the LNP, which have slowly, from weak, cowardly decisions, they've eroded the values that they apparently originally stood till they get to where we are today. And so I think hard decisions, especially when it comes to disciplinary, and you know that your representatives are the representative of the people, but of the party and the brand. And so I think it's certainly from my perspective comforting to hear that kind of approach would be taken, because I think you know, look at Abbott, look at the damage he did to that party.
Yeah. And just to give you a little example, like on a small scale, I mean, you're talking about bigger scale, but I think the first small compromise is the one that kills you. That's why in politics, you have to be uncompromising. In life, it's a bit weird to be totally uncompromising. It makes you a strange person, but in politics, you have to be, I think, because the first little compromise, it's the slippery slope thing. So I'm pleased to report that we have a campaign manager running our campaign in Eden Monaro by-election, and that campaign manager suggested that we would do much better preference-wise if we gave a high preference spot to a certain party. I won't say which party, but you can imagine it was not a party that in any way accorded with our values and, was pro-coal and a whole bunch of other things that we didn't like. And I said that even if we lose the election, we cannot do that, and we cannot be seen to be doing that. And we have a little signal group, with all the candidates and the senior members of the National Executive. And I'm happy to report that I didn't get one titter from anybody. Yeah. Everybody said, yeah. We're not going to do that. That's not us, So at the moment, we're rock solid. But I do take your point that for whatever weird reason, an Angus Taylor can pop up in your party, even a party like this. And I agree with you that the only way to deal with